All right, what's up, Facebook? What's up, brothers? Welcome to ManUp Friday with me, Mike, your mentor, coming at you a little bit earlier in the day than usual. Usually, we're doing this around 9 o'clock, but I'm actually going to be out of town. Me and my son are going on a men's retreat, so looking forward to that. Getting away for a couple days, hanging out with some guys, and chasing after God a little bit and having some fun. So if you're new to this channel, the reason I started this is because I went through a bunch of crazy stuff growing up. It was a very dysfunctional environment at times. And now that I'm older and looking back on my life, I have asked myself these questions, or several questions, but one of them being like, why can you have two people born into similar type situations and one person come out of it and do something with their lives, and another person never do anything with their life? And just looking back and reflecting on my own life, and I noticed two things. First, I noticed that the grace of God was on my life. Without God, I wouldn't be here today. The second thing is I had mentors in my life, ones that I sought out in books, in the stories that I read. I always loved reading about people who struggled with things and were able to make something out of their lives, and made the right choices and decided to do something with their life, and took control. They may not have had everything, but they went and they found what they needed and the resources, and made it happen. The second thing is I had a lot of guys who came alongside me and saw something in me, who sowed seeds of encouragement, seeds of wisdom, seeds of honor. They let me be a part of their life, and watch how they interacted with their wives and their children, and went on some vacations with some of these guys. So they really took me under their wing, and I don't believe that there's anything like a self-made man. No one gets through life alone. We all need people in our lives to help us out at different times. So this page is an effort for me to do that, to give back to other men, and share the wisdom that's been sown into me over all these years, because you don't know what you don't know. And there's a lot of things that I didn't know, and I came to a really hard time in my life where I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life, and I wasn't sure if I even wanted to be married. And I met a group of guys through the church I was involved in, and we went through this workbook that made a profound impact on my life. I can't overstate that. The things that this workbook exposed me to, the questions that it had me ask, really woke me up and allowed me to look at my life and where I had come from and where I was at then, and to make to face some difficult truths, right, about the person that I was, and what I really wanted for my life. And then it laid out a process for me to deal with those things, and to move on, and to finally leave those things behind and not have them hinder me in my life, because they were affecting me in lots of areas of my life, whether I wanted to admit it or realize it at all. So that workbook is The Quest for Authentic Manhood by Robert M. Lewis. So every Friday here, I go through 10 to 15 minutes out of this workbook. This isn't my content. This is Dr. Lewis's content, but it's profound, and I share it with you in hopes that you listen and pay attention, and you can use it to make a difference in your life, just like it made a difference in mine. So let's jump into today's thing. What was that? I don't need to do that. Sorry about that. All right, so today we're talking about mother wounds, right? And this will be our topic probably for the next 2-3 weeks, maybe. In the week past, we've dealt with father wounds, and what those look like, and the definition of that, and how those can impact your life. Very serious thing. Sorry, I need to close one other window here. All right. So this is a picture, right, of, you got my mom there. You got me in that blue shirt, looking dapper. Look at all that luscious curly hair. You got my brother there in the middle with his little nappy fro. and little sailor sweater. And then you got my sister down there below as well. You know, and my mom, she was a single mom for most of our life, you know, because of the choices that my dad made. And you know, these coming weeks are probably going to be some of the toughest weeks for me to talk about. I'm still going to be vulnerable, just because you know, it's your mom. You know, I think that as a son, you have a closer, at most times, a relationship with your mom than maybe you do with your dad, right? Because a mother is supposed to be loving and nurturing, and they so much into you, and they always lift you up, and they're always speaking vision, you know, and telling you you can do great things. My mom always told me that I could do whatever I put my mind to, and I just believe that. You know, I believe that I had the ability to figure things out, and she did a good job of sowing that seed into me at a young age. And the interesting dynamic with my mom, right, is growing up and all the stuff that I went through with my dad being in and out of our lives. I blame my mom for that because I was immature, and I wasn't able to see the big picture. But now that I'm older, I can easily acknowledge that you know, it wasn't my mom's fault that my dad left and didn't want to be a part of our family. That was a decision my dad made on his own. And for whatever reason, the demons in his life, he couldn't make that decision and make that commitment and take it serious. You know, and I've apologized to my mom for the way I treated her at times and the things that I've said. But you know, it took a lot for me to get to that point in my life, and it meant that I had to deal with some things that we're going to talk about this week and in the following weeks concerning mother wounds. So here we go. Right. So I just labeled this the power of a mom. Right. We're going to talk about the mom factor. I hinted on that a little bit already. You know, moms play a crucial role in their sons' lives for various reasons, and it's very important in the development of a man, maybe more so than moms probably realize, and definitely more so than us sons realize, how the relationship that we have with our mother will shape who we are and the things that we do in life. And I don't believe that those things are fixed right in place. Like, you can go through a lot of hard things with your mom, but I believe that you always have a choice to make in any situation, and how you want to deal with something from your past. So even if you don't have a good relationship with your mom at this point in time, you can choose to make that better, and you can choose to do something about it and to move forward. And that's what I'm all about, right? Is empowering other guys and sharing this stuff that I learned that empowered me. So there's two significant breaks with a mom that we need to consider. The first break is from the physical bondedness, right? So when you're born, you know, inside this isn't going to be very scientific, but inside your mother's womb, you know, you're attached to an umbilical cord. And for, you know, 8-9 months, you know, there's that physical process of bonding, because everything that your mother ate, you ate. Everything that your mom drank, you drank. Everything that your mother did or didn't do with her body during that time, you know, affected you in some way. And there, for whatever reason, in the way God made it, you know, there's that bond that forms as men, as young boys, as you know, that you grow from an egg, you know, into a fetus, into a little baby, and your mom carries you, right? Like, carries you, like physically carries you around, and nurses you, and you know, that bond strengthens, right? There's that physical bond, okay? And so that first break comes when we're born, right? When we're born into this world, and the doctor or the father, whoever is present in that room, has to cut the umbilical cord, and it's a very serious separation physically, because now you're no longer attached to your mother. You are your own person. Now that doesn't obviously negate that you're going to need some nurturing from your mother, uh, and she's going to help you grow. But that's the first actual separation physically from your mom, and it's significant. And those things, I'm not an expert on this, but I know that there's been studies done about the memories and the feelings that they can take people, and through regression and hypnosis, have them go back to some of those memories that they had of being in the mother's womb, and just the effects that has on a baby, and some of the trauma that it can induce, right? Um, and let's talk about what it also does to mom. Sometimes moms can get postpartum blues and depression, right, as a result of giving birth, and then that physical detachment from the baby, and what it can do to a woman's body and to the chemical balance in there. So that's obviously a very real issue on these things that are going on. The second significant break, right, is from emotional bondness, because as you're being raised, you're being looked after by your mother, and by your father, your family, but most of the time it's your mom, right? She's feeding you, she's loving you, she's changing you, she's hugging you, she's taking you for stroller rides, she's protecting you, right? Like, there's that motherly instinct that's inside of her, mama bear, right? Like, is going to come out, and she's not going to let anything happen to you. I don't care who you were. If you were born into this world and you had a mom, there's that connection that God made and established, and that connection is extremely powerful. And a mother is going to, at times, even give up her own life for you as the baby, and that can look that can play out in a lot of different ways, right? So there's that emotional bondness. Now, this is the most difficult to deal with, because I think it's the first experience that we have as babies of love, and of pure love, right? Like selfless love, and not to talk about, not to overlook a mother's love for her infant from that end, right? Like, she's feeding them, she's nurturing, she's taking care of. She's like a lot of times the sole person that's responsible for this new life, and just the bond that creates. And so as a boy grows into a man, and he tries to come into his manhood fully and establish his own identity, that can have effects on not only the boy but also the mother, right? Because the boy is pulling away from his mom, from that nurturing, and from that help, and is trying to be his own man and own his own life. And that plays out in a multitude of different ways. I remember, right, like my mom, she would do exactly what my grandma did. She would lick her fingers, and then she would wipe them on my face, and no stones here, right? Because I've done that to my daughter plenty of times too. And she'd take the spit and wipe away the toothpaste in the corner of my mouth. And I got to a point when I got older that I wouldn't let my mom do that anymore, and I would fight with her, because I wanted to establish my own identity, and I wanted to be able to take care of my own self, right? And just the little things, right? Like, I got to a point where I didn't want my mom to dress me. I got to a point where I didn't want my mom to feed me. All these different milestones, right? And with each one, I think as a man, or as a young boy growing into a man, we're thinking about ourselves and what we need. We're not putting ourselves in its natural, and it's not wrong or it's not right. It's not natural that you put yourself in your mother's shoes at that age and think about what she has to deal with as this life that she's nurtured and helped grown, slowly, moves away from her and away from needing her. That's a huge change, and now being on this side, right, with kids of my own, and I see my daughter growing up, and my son, and them not needing me as much or my wife to do as much for them, there's a little bit of sadness in that. I mean, I'm sure the day is fast approaching where my daughter's not going to want to curl up and have me read her a bedtime story anymore, and I think that's going to be, I think about that, right? Because that's going to be tough. And I know other men that their daughters are grown and they miss things like that, and they tell me to slow down and to cherish that. So those are all good truths. All right. So real health for a man with mom moves him right from one direction to another, and the way that it moves him is it moves him from being one with mom, literally, right? You're born, and then there's that separation, that cut of the umbilical cord, and then it goes into a healthy physical separation, right, where mom's able to nurture you and take care of you and help you grow into being a boy and a young man. And then there has to be a healthy emotional separation where mom understands that you're trying to be your own person, and I'm not saying that it's easy. I can't imagine being a mom, right, and having to deal with this, but she understands, and she's able to look at that situation with wisdom and help you, or help help her little boy embrace these different things at the different stages of her life. And then later on, she's able to fully break away emotionally with her son as she lets her son become one with another woman relationally, which happens obviously in marriage for the most part. Is when that fully takes over, and she's got to relinquish the reins as your primary, maybe I'll call it your secondary caretaker, right? Because you take care of yourself first when you're older, and then your mom's looking over you. But when you get married, you have this other this woman that you've married, and now she's gonna assume some of that role that mom previously had. All right, so now we're going to explore the mother wound, and we want to give this a definition so we kind of can understand some context in what this looks like. And as you think back on your own relationship with your mom, you can see how this might fit into your own life, and this can be the one of many building blocks in helping you, if you struggle with this wound that we're going to talk about, move forward. Right, so a good definition is it's an unhealthy emotional relationship with mother that causes a son to either be threatened by the influence of women later on in life, or to over-identify and become submissive to that influence. Right, there has to be this healthy balance that you carry over from your teen years, your years as a young man, into life away from mom, and how you interact with the opposite sex, right? And I say this all the time, but it's true. Just as it holds true for fathers in the home, it holds true for women in the home, right? And especially for fathers, right? Because the way that a boy sees his father treat a mother or his mother in the house is the exact same way that he's going to live that out in his life. Right? No doubt. I mean, if it's a bad situation, it can definitely be changed. But those habits or those observations, right? They get seared into our memory. They get seared into our subconscious, and then we're married, and we find ourselves doing things that we saw our parents do without even realizing it, right? Whether it's how they treated each other, whether how they talked to each other, those type of things. And that relationship growing up as a young boy that we had with our mother plays out in our lives. If we always had to take care of ourselves, maybe we become more independent, so that when we're in a committed relationship with a woman, we're not opening up. We're guarded. We're in this mode of, I got to make things happen. I got to take care of myself. Like, it's only me that can take care of me. I'm the only one that I can depend on. And that's a little bit of the wound that I had, right? Like, that I default to is like, I have to take care of myself. I have to do these things, like it's all on me. And that's not good all the time, right? It's not good for communication. It's not good for building that relationship. So these are things that I've had to identify in my own relationship today, that carried over from my relationship with my mother. So to give you guys an example, right? So important characteristics of exploring the mother wound. This wound, it's not blatant. It's actually very subtle, because it happens over time. For the most part, mom just doesn't all of a sudden, break away from you. In most cases, obviously, and do these things, or become a helicopter mom overnight. She doesn't move from being relaxed and laid back to all of a sudden super controlling. It's a process that's built out over your life and over your relationship as you two have interacted. Um, Secondly, this wound is not one of abuse, neglect, or absenteeism, but it's a wound disguised as love and care, right? Because that's where it comes from. It comes from a mother's heart, and I believe that a mother's heart is very pure and filled with very good intentions. And since they brought you into this world, and there's that physical and that emotional bond, uh, that is probably more important from them to you than from you to them. Uh, that all these things that they do are out of love and care. I could think of some situations in my own life where I wanted to step away and kind of do things on my own, or I started moving towards that independence, and it was very hard for my mom. And there was a little bit of control there, in her not ready to let me step into that. And now that I'm older, I can look back on that, and especially since I have kids myself, and I can see, my mom was only doing those things out of love and out of care. I'll give you a good example. I think I was 7 years old, and my mom bought me this bike, and we were living downtown, and my mom told me I could ride my bike up this. So we lived on the corner, so I could ride it up the sidewalk on one street, and then I could ride it down the sidewalk on the other street. But I was supposed to stop at the alley. I wasn't allowed to cross the alley, and by no means I wasn't allowed to cross the street. Well, one day, right, I'm riding my bike, and I'm like, well, it's time for me to make my own decision. So I decide that I'm going to ride my bike past the alley. Well, I did, and I don't know if my mom knew this, or knew what was going to happen, but I rode my bike across the alley. This older boy came out of his house. He was like the first house across the alley. And he stopped me, asked me what I was doing. I said I was riding my bike. He told me I needed to pay a toll in order to keep going. I didn't have anything to pay him. He didn't like that answer, so he pushed me over in my bike. We fought a little bit, and then he went back into his house, and I got back on my bike, and I rode back up to my house crying and sobbing because of what this older kid did. My mom was out in the yard doing something, and she saw me. And she asked me, I don't even think she asked me, she just said to me, she goes, "You went past the alley, didn't you?" And I told her, "Yep." And I might have got a little whooping on top of that. But my mom, that's a good example, right? Like, she loved me. She wanted me to be protected. She wanted me to be, to be careful. She didn't want anything to happen to me. I saw that as control, when really it was just her love and her care for me. So 3, this is not a wound of inattention, but it's a wound of over attention, right? Because it can get to a point where that love, that motherly caring can get skewed, right? And for a lot of reasons, but I guess what comes to my mind is another good example is so if mom and dad, right, are together, and then there's a divorce, and then dad leaves, mom has custody of the kids, and she's taking care of the kids, she's working, she's doing all of that, right? She's on her own. She's a single mother. A lot of times she's not going to have the same freedom she had when they were married. She's not maybe interacting with other adults as much. She's not getting her own time. So then her time gets turned towards that extra time that she would have spent with other adults gets turned towards her kids, right? And then that her kids are her everything, right? And then that cannot be that. Sometimes that's not healthy, right? Because then she's over controlling or oversensitive, or maybe she's sharing things with the kids that she shouldn't be sharing, and she should be sharing it with an adult. If we've lived long enough, depending on how old you are, you probably know situations like this where things have gone wrong in a marriage and people have got divorced, and the kids hear things they shouldn't hear, and then for whatever reason, dad is trying to buy the affection of the kids when he sees them, so he's giving them a lot of presents and stuff, and then mom is trying to make up for dad not being there and in the son's life, so she's just pouring on him and trying to love on him as much as she could, and things get skewed. So it's a wound of over attention. In this wound, it looks like love, right? But it feels like control to the person who's receiving it, right? My mom loved the snot out of me. My mom would do anything for me. My mom worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs to take care of us. And when I was younger, I took that for granted. For whatever reason, man, I didn't have the capacity to look beyond myself for most of the time and see just the sacrifice that my mom was making on our behalf. I was just blinded by the fact that dad wasn't there. It's your fault, mom. Who are these other guys you're bringing around? And I'm just going to focus on that, right? But what I really didn't realize is that my mom had her own life to live. She was trying to move on from the stuff that my dad put her through. And what's natural? I mean, you're an adult. You want to have a relationship with someone of the opposite sex. But I didn't see it as that. I saw it as threatening what was in our house and what I thought was my right, and that was to have a dad who lived with me. Just was what it was. That's the way I thought at that time because I wasn't wise enough. So that's the definition and the characteristics of the mother wound. Next week we're gonna get into how those play out, right? Like how those wounds occur in the different types of forms that they can take on in your life. And then as we move forward in the weeks ahead, we're going to talk about, just like we did with the father wound, how do you address those, right, in a way that's honoring of your mother, but also helps you be able to move past and on those things in your own life, so you can, have a better relationship with your wife, so you can have a better relationship with your mother if it's not a good one now. So those are the things that we'll talk about. I appreciate you guys being here with me a little bit earlier than normal. I hope you got a lot out of this. If you know somebody who could use this type of stuff, right, I think it's good for all men to deal with. Please feel free to share this video with them, to like. If you got any comments or questions, leave them below. And if you need help with anything, you need to process something, you just need somebody to listen to you that's not going to be judgmental, and is going to hear you out, by all means, please DM me, reach out to me. More than happy to talk with you and be a listening ear. All right, I love you guys. Hope you guys have a good day, and we'll see you tomorrow for Shout Out Saturday. Bye.